In this next problem, we're going to show all customers and their shipping addresses. And what we want to include is the customer name, street address, city, state, and zip. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this down. So we're going to select this, and we're going to select it from 3 tables. And the reason why we need 3 tables, well, we need the customer table and we need the location table, because the customer table has the customer name and the location table has street addresses, city, state, and zip, and so on. However, each customer in the locations table, or each customer has 2 addresses in the locations table. They have a shipping address and they have a invoice address, and we only want the shipping addresses. And to find out what is a shipping address, we need to use the sales order header table. So here we have the customer information, here's the location information, and here's the sales order header table. And the sales order header table contains a field called shipping location ID. So as long as a location row is associated with a shipping location ID, then we know that that row is a shipping address and not a invoice address. All right, so let's go ahead and start coding this then. So we're going to be selecting all these. We're going to select it from customer A, and I'm going to go ahead and indent this because we're going to have quite a bit of code. And then we need to join with these other 2. And then I'm going to pull customer name from A. I'm going to pull location from B. All these different location fields I'm going to pull from B. Now I need to call this B2, and I can add the word as, keyword as here, and I need to uncomment the thing above here so I can actually see my code correctly. So I'm going to join the customer table with the location table, and I'm going to join them based on the customer ID. So if we go back to the ERD, we can see here that they are linked up using the customer ID. These lines here, of course, means that there's a referential integrity built into the database that forces certain relationships shown here in the ERD diagram. However, we can of course also use other, so if there was a customer ID here and a customer ID here, but we didn't have this line because there was no referential integrity set up in the database, or we didn't design it to be that way, we can still relate things from the different tables even though there's no line, simply by creating a join between the 2. But these gives us indications of what the design it looks like and how the database has been implemented. So anyway, so I'm going to join these 2 based on the customer ID. And as you notice here, each customer can have many locations. And that's what we talked about before, that each customer can have 2 different locations, an invoice location and a shipping location. However, since we need to use a sales order header to decide whether a address is a shipping location or invoice location, well, each customer can have many sales orders. So when we join the sales order header together with customers and location, we're going to end up with many rows for each customer, and we only want 1 row for each customer. So here we either need to use distinct or a group by to only get unique values for each customer. So for example, if we only want from the sales order header table, we only want unique values for customer ID and shipping location ID, I could either group based on those 2 or I could use distinct. And here I'm going to use distinct because that's what we're working on right now. So I cannot call a distinct from within the join itself. So I'm going to have to do a join and then a subquery where I'm selecting, so I only get the distinct customer IDs and location IDs from the sales order header table. So I'm going to do select, and then I'm going to be selecting the customer ID, and I'm going to select the shipping location ID. And then I'm going to select that from my sales order header, and I'm going to call that S for subquery A. Track all that. And then that subquery is done. And I'm going to call that as C, because I have A, B, and then C. However, notice here, if I run this, just this piece, notice that I'm getting 73,595 rows, and I only have a few hundred customers. So here again, I'm getting all the orders, and I wanted to only get unique values for customer ID and shipping location. So I need to add the word distinct here. And then if I run it again, now I'm only getting my 663 rows. So now I have unique customer ID and shipping location ID combinations. So then next now I've already joined the customers in the locations table. And then I'm going to do an inner join with this. So this, when it says just join, that's of course the same thing as inner join. And I'm doing inner join here because I only want rows from the customer in the locations table that have a match in that order header table. I don't want any locations that don't match that. So here I'm gonna then say SC, and I'm gonna do the join on. I'm gonna fix this on up here. And I'm going to do, and to make this match the on down there, I'm going to place the on inside here, and I'm going to indent that because that, I feel like that join is part of, that on is part of the join itself. I'm going to join that with, and you don't have to indent that. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I'm going to join this based on the customer ID from the customers table. Join with that result that we just got from the customer order header table. And I want the location IDs to match. So the location ID from the locations should be matching the shipping location. And then I'm just going to order the results to make it a little bit easier to read it. Order by, and then I'm going to order by customer ID. I'm going to end the select statement, and then we go ahead and run. So I'm getting an error message. You can't see it, but it says that my reference to customer ID is ambiguous, which is telling me I forgot to do an alias. So I'm going to pull that from a customer ID, and then I'm going to run it again. And now we're getting, for each customer, notice that these are different customers. We're getting one address for each one of them. So I again have 663 rows, which is how many customers I have. So I have only one row for each customer. So that must mean in the order header table, all customers had only one shipping location. And we confirmed that earlier too. But if they had, for example, maybe moved or changed the shipping location, then I would have gotten 2 rows or 3 rows, depending on how many shipping locations they had. I would have gotten that many rows for those customers that had multiple locations. But here I'm getting the same number of rows as I had in a customers table, which must mean each customer had orders shipped to only one location.